Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It is April the 16th, and we are rolling live on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. And if you are watching us anywhere else, what are you doing over there? Why don't you come join the live chat? Folks are already getting going. We're getting the discussion started. You can hit the like button while you're there and give us the follows as needed. I actually wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping for all of us that are on Rumble, and this is for the video audience only. But if you end up being a video audience at some point, you might want to do this. This is how you subscribe to the channel, should you choose to support us if you want to. It's $5 a month to do a subscription, and that's about 23 cents a show. We figured it out. It's an average of 22 shows a month, not nothing. And the other thing is I wanted to cover some of the issues that some of you guys have. You always talk about glitching or freezing and stuff like that. If you're watching us on Wi-Fi, you're not on a hardwired internet terminal, or if you're watching us on your cell phone and you're having issues, Rumble has these little settings, and you may not know about them, but they're on the bottom part of the screen, which you can see right now. If you click on the sprocket, which is the settings, you'll notice that there's a little 1 megabits on mine, the quality and the speed. If you're watching after the fact and you're like, hey, Kyle talks too slowly, I need it in a hyperspeed, knock yourself out, you can change the speed. But if you need to change the quality, the stream will be a little bit easier on your terminal. And you can see in the second little thing there, that'll tell you the size. The 1 megabit, I think, is just a little bit below 720p. Then you can do 720p. You can also do HD, which is the 1080p. And we stream in all those qualities. So you guys can do whatever you like. This is just a little help for you if you are having issues with our stream and it is not moving as quickly as you want it to. Before we get started with today's show, I want to do a thanks to my friends over at Patriot Coolers, who have been sponsoring our show since February of 2023. The upside for that is that I've been using their products since October of 2017. Yeah, we've been with them for a little while. They've been with us for a little while. We really appreciate it. Guys, you can go to patriotcoolers.com. Again, the website is Patriot Coolers. There's an S on the end there, patriotcoolers.com. And then plug in my promo code. We always use the same promo code. It's KYLE. Promo code Kyle will save you 10%. If you spend $50 or more, you'll get free shipping. That's not a bad deal. And you can end up with something like this. This is the 19-ounce coffee mug. Fits great in all vehicles that I have traveled in. And I have traveled in many vehicles. Or you could do something like this. This is the 32-ounce tumbler that I keep water in because I am sitting at this desk all day long doing all kinds of weird stuff. And when I do so, I need to stay hydrated. And that keeps my beverages hot or cold, as the case may be. PatriotCoolers.com. The promo code is Kyle. All right, so today's show, we're going to do a little bit, we're going to ease into this. I got some fun stuff going on at the end, so definitely stick around. I have got two, count them, 1, 2, palate cleansers as you walk into your Tuesday. And you're going to enjoy both of them, I think. One of them is really going to be video audience only. In fact, I might even cut it out. So if you're listening to the audio and you hear me cut away, that's what you're doing. You're missing out on something, and you might want to check it out towards the end of the show. The other one you're going to be able to understand even without seeing it, although it is a very pretty girl and an attractive man chatting. And it is, I think, the way the Suspendables looked at people that are trying to honeypot them. We've talked about grinder journalism here. That's kind of the thing. All right. So a lot of what we do on the show is covering down on the social weirdness and what it might mean in the broader sense. And so in order to research that, my process is non-scientific. I spend a lot of time on social media looking at what people are seeing. I spend a lot of time on the news sites figuring out what it is they're covering and what it is they're covering up. And that's probably not surprising to any of you. The strangest thing for me is that last night, out of nowhere, because there's always a weird mix of stuff in my feeds. There's people fighting cops. There's cops shooting bad guys. There were two things that were very, very prevalent in the feed. One of them was discussions of TikTok influencers, which I guess is how kids get their news, and parents of so-called trans kids and all this other nonsense. And they were all talking about puberty blockers. And I couldn't figure out what on earth was going on there. Why are we pushing this story about puberty blockers? And specifically, why yesterday was it coming down? And then the second thing is a lot of people are videotaping themselves talking about the cost of groceries. And I think that opens up a bigger discussion as well. So there's three major topics that are sort of video oriented that we're going to talk about today. One of them, the cost of everyday items. Two, the puberty blocker situation, why that popped up of like really, really high prominence yesterday. And then the third is the Palestinian protests that are going everywhere. And, we're told that the FBI needs FISA 702 so they can keep track of foreign threats. Do we have to believe then that this is an organic, natural phenomenon that is happening U.S. based, that a terrorist organization called Hamas, which is based out of Qatar, and a piece of Israel called Gaza, is somehow getting massive support in every major U.S. city? I want to show you a couple of those protests and how they went sideways and what the right answer is. By the way, the right answer is what's going on in Florida, but that doesn't mean that places like California and Illinois and New York are not starting to catch on. Everyone's starting to tire of this childish attitude. So we're going to get into this pretty deeply. Let's start off right now. First story coming out of the Supreme Court. In fact, I have two things I want to cover out of the Supreme Court. The first one is what you're seeing on the screen from CNN. This is a analytical piece supposedly by John Fritz and Hannah Rabinowitz. I probably mispronounced that. The big story is that the Supreme Court is supposed to hear oral arguments today about the 1512 charge. The 1512 charge is the obstruction of an official proceeding. This is the misuse of the Sarbanes-Oxley law, which was developed actually to go after Enron, which was also probably not correct. In fact, most of the charges about Enron were vacated after the fact. Did you guys know that? Did you know that after all of the talk about Enron, after the feds destroyed that company and took it apart, they basically came back and were like, we're going to have to leave a lot of this on the end. They were overturned on appeal. So that didn't stop the company from going under and never reclaiming its former glory, but it's quite interesting. So this article says the court's decision could significantly, or could have significant ramifications rather, for the former president Donald Trump, who's charged with the same criminal offense. This is why this is relevant on a much bigger scale, and certainly much more important than the so-called hush money case that's going on, which will be decided. I mean, that's just a nonsensical use of our prosecutor resources in New York. The special counsel, Jack Smith, has charged Trump with violating federal law, which was enacted in 2002. It prohibits people from obstructing an official proceeding. Again, not that kind of official proceeding, not an official proceeding of Congress. What was supposed to happen is that it was an obstruction charge that was supposed to stop you from obstructing a federal investigation and the process that was going on, trying to figure out the bottom of where had the money gone and what was going on with Enron. And then they took it and they said, well, if you're walking around in the Capitol and these people can't have a vote, that's an official proceeding. It's a very, very interesting, novel interpretation. And you know what we think on this show about novel interpretations of law? They're almost always bad. They're almost always bad. And if you're going to take something that is 20 years out of context and try to turn it into something that it was not, very strange. These are the same charges that are filed against hundreds of rioters and also hundreds of nonviolent people. This is the felony charge that they were able to pump up. And for whatever reason, it holds a charge. The charge holds a prison sentence up to 20 years, which means most people are not going to get 20 years. But it is out there. It is a possibility. Supreme Court is going to consider whether the prosecutor's interpretation of the law, and by the way, many people have been convicted of said law, can be used against rioters, and whether those convictions that have already been secured will stand. This is a pretty important story. And so this oral argument is going to be quite interesting to see how it comes down. I don't think that I don't think that the law is in favor based on the way that it was initially enacted. And we have a much more originalist looking Supreme Court. So when they start talking about what's out there and how this was enacted and what they meant by the law at the time, it's This is an uphill battle for the government. That's good. The government is supposed to have a difficult time. It's supposed to have a difficult time going after your freedom. And it's supposed to be an honest operator. We know that it is not being an honest operator, that has not been operating in good faith. So this is one of those things that took, let's see, we're in April of 2024. April of 2024, since January 6th of 2021. That's how long this took. So 3 years and change to finally get after this and try to adjudicate it. The wheels of justice move slowly. Another thing that was discussed, and I'm not gonna burden you with this, but there was a ton of media coverage on the slow wheels of justice. I actually have clips from Rachel Maddow and from Jake Tapper. I'm not playing them today, mostly because I don't really want to hear what they have to say. But I want to tell you that they were talking about the big difference, the big sort of wild difference between Trump and Biden is that Trump fell asleep in the middle of his trial in New York, which was probably very boring. That's what they're going to try to go on. They're going to push out there that Joe Biden is so virile. And of course, they've got Sideshow Bob, Kareem Jean-Pierre out there talking about, we could barely keep up with him and this other stuff. So they're doing the circuit on that. And at the same time, they're talking about, have you noticed Donald Trump, he fell asleep in the middle of a trial? Well, he's not a young guy. We should be real honest about that. When it comes to standing on 2 feet, walking, talking, and having sentient thoughts, he seems pretty squared away. I think that he probably runs his own social media. That seems to be pretty much the case when he's over there sharing his stuff on True Social. But we don't really see that with Joe Biden. We've got some weirdo intern that's out there running that. So it is what it is. This is the second Supreme Court case that I wanted to bring up. This is a case that is about maybe the reason why we're seeing so much about puberty blockers. I am going to play you one video from a mom of a so-called trans kid and the so-called trans kid as well. It's worth hearing them in their own words. My favorite is that they start off with, I'm not an expert, but I've got a kid who does this. Yeah, we know. We know you don't know what you're talking about. That's fine. Supreme Court allows the enforcement of an Idaho ban on gender-affirming care for transgender minors. This is NBC reporting from their Supreme Court desk. The Idaho measure, which seeks to block treatments such as puberty blockers and hormone therapy, is one of more than 20 enacted by conservative states targeting care for transgender youth. You like the way they say that? It's always in the phrasing, is it not? The measure seeks to block. No, what the measure does is it seeks to create a standard of reasonable care that doesn't exist. So it says you can't do this. A divided Supreme Court on Monday allowed the Idaho, not the Idaho. This is not an American beauty pageant where we say the Iraq. It allowed Idaho to mostly enforce a law that bans gender-affirming healthcare for transgender teenagers. The thing that bothers me about all this kind of stuff is that these people, this writer is Lawrence Hurley, is clearly already slanting and taking an angle. And we're actually going to cover a little bit about that later on when we talk about Bill Maher and his show. But the idea that there's always been sort of a bias in journalism, that's true. And I think people have known that for a very long time. But it's so in your face right now that people go and seek out the thing that they want to hear. And in this case, gender-affirming healthcare is the same sort of thing as talking about reproductive rights, which is that you can murder or kill your own baby. And so the way that you phrase these things already tells me the lean that you are going to be bringing to it. Granting an emergency request filed by Idaho officials, the court said that the law was enacted, it went in last year, and it could go into effect statewide, but it cannot be applied against the 2 plaintiffs who challenged it. So there's what they would call a very narrow injunction to the 2 people who brought the lawsuit. So they can go ahead and have whatever, they can sterilize themselves. And that's sad. But the rest of the state is going to have to abide by the law until it's determined. The court's 3 liberal justices, I would call them leftists, objected to the decision, saying that the law should remain blocked in full and that everybody should be able to chemically castrate their child. That's me editorializing on top of that. District Judge named Lynn Windmill, is that right? Windmill? Yeah, Windmill, ruled in December that the state could not enforce the law while the litigation continues. And then the Ninth Circuit of Appeals in San Francisco, that was where the appeal went. And then the Supreme Court picked it up and just said, no, they can do it. They can move forward. So it's worth noting that we're talking about maybe transgender treatments and these gender affirming cares and or sterilization of children simply because whenever there's an action that takes place, there's always a social media reaction, and the social media reaction from the left is to go on the offensive and to try to push this nonsense. I want to show you what one of the things I saw this 2 days ahead of the arguments that happened and this decision coming down And then there's dozens of others out there. You guys can go find them anywhere from moms talking about it to weirdos talking about it in their young 20s, trying to convert more people to the cult. And it's all gross. It's all silly. These people do not look well. I feel for this kid who's just looking to sort of clump on. If you follow the woman, Josie, the redheaded libertarian, you'll see she tweeted out something the other day of just sort of like the mental health statistics that are also lined up with people who identify as trans. And it's a huge chunk of them have autism or are on the autistic spectrum. Another huge chunk of them are already just gay. Another chunk of them are mothers who have mental illness. They're called cluster B. There's a handful of mental illnesses, both in the child and in the parent, that tend to lend themselves towards kids in this situation, which you're going to see right now.
Let me preface this by saying that I am not an expert, but I am the mother of a trans child. And there has been a lot of misconceptions about medication for the trans community, specifically minors. So the anxiety level that is created by not allowing children to take these medications and take a breath and grow into themselves is so strong that we actually may be harming certain children by not giving them access.
The vast majority of minors who would receive some form of gender-affirming care would receive it in the form of puberty blockers. Puberty blockers have been used for decades to delay puberty. That means a 13-year-old person who was born as a boy and is just on the cusp of male puberty can delay it if that person feels like she may be a girl. I find a common misconception is people think trans kids are being, quote, mutilated or groomed or coerced into something they might regret later. But in reality, trans kids do not get reassignment surgery before they're adults. They get blockers. That's what the far majority of trans kids get. And by all of these laws blocking every single form of care, shutting down gender-affirming care clinics that truly just help kids take a breath, by closing them, you're closing their airway.
So let's let parents of trans kids handle their kids with their doctors in private. I know my kid best.
Wow. That's tough to listen to, isn't it? I don't know where the airway thing came in. As someone who's been a paramedic, I guess I'm about to lose my certification. Maybe I just did. Maybe it just went down to EMT basic. As someone who has been licensed as a medic for a decade plus, the airway is a really critical feature in your life support system, in the way that your human biology works. When you close off the airway, your time is limited. In fact, when I went through SEER school, we learned a little bit about that, and they say that you can live for 3 weeks without food. You can live for something like 3 minutes with your airway not working properly. You actually have a capacity of something like 5 to 6 liters of air hanging out in there, even in the dead space. So there is a little bit of air in there, but I don't think that kid with a closed off airway is going to be living very long. It's nonsensical. It's also really worth noting. Did you notice that boy was a mini-me of the mom, and that mom is sitting on a stool above him, and he's standing below her? Like, the power dynamic, even in the visual there, was very weird. Now, they sound like reasonable people, and I don't think that she thinks that she's doing something horrible. And yet, from the outside, we look in and just go, yikes. Like a clean home. A child who is otherwise looks like is not being physically abused, but the emotional and the mental abuse is very, very weird to watch. And it's very sad. I pity that poor boy. They have this single factor analysis that we often talk about. Like, it's like, well, no, we just need to do this one thing. What if we just gave the poor people money? Then they would have money. And you're like, what if we just stopped puberty? That's not how it works. Puberty is a massive cascade of hormones, and you are basically putting in, and they haven't been used for decades safely for lots of people. That's nonsense. That hasn't been going on for decades safely. There's a very, very small number of people that might have had to delay puberty using some of these things, but they also use it for chemical castration for pedophiles. So there's that. I actually heard a complete scientific breakdown, very medium science kind of thing, talking about the names of the particular hormones and the processes that were being interrupted. And they were acting like once you've interrupted it, the body's going to just move on and go. No, you're delaying things like long bone growth and calcification and all kinds of secondary sex characteristics that are necessary for that skeleton, that human being, to develop. And every cell in their body is looking and waiting for that trigger. And you're going to miss it, and then you think it's going to go fine normally? No, they're going to end up like a weird midget. a sexually repressed and potentially sterilized midget. So there's that. It's really sad stuff to watch. We talked about airway a second ago. Let me just throw my friends up over here, and let's say thanks to my buddies over at 4Patriots. Folks, a good sponsor of our show that has stuck around with us for months now, and we are really appreciative. 4patriots.com/Kyle is the website that we use to prep food, to store food, to be able to figure out, like, look, you've only got so much time in the tank, right? You got a couple of days without food. 3 weeks goes really quickly, by the way. Think about what you were doing 3 weeks ago. Imagine if you hadn't had a bite to eat since then and you were at the verge of starvation. This is how you hedge that sort of danger off, particularly in a Biden economy. Their pricing is pretty fair. You can get a huge chunk of calories that you can hold on to and make easy and intelligent decisions without being under the gun for like, hey, where's my next meal coming from? 4patriots.com/Kyle is the website you go to. That will tag anything that you buy as coming from our show's reference. And that gives you the chance to prepare, which is infinitely more desirable than the repair option. That's why you're seeing it on the screen. They've also got all kinds of cool gadgets and gizmos, so check them out as well. But 4patriots.com/Kyle, appreciative of their support of the program, and also they're supporting your survival, should you choose to take advantage of it, which is a good idea. All right. Should we keep pressing on? It's weird to see these people do this kind of stuff. Let's press into the Trump stuff. We're talking about court things. Again, the first one, that 1512 charge, will have some relevance to Donald Trump in the federal case he's dealing with. But that is not the news of the day that they got really excited with. We have the takeaways, the Trump trial takeaways coming from ABC News. And they had 11 people write this article. It's not quite 11, but it's a lot. Hundreds of prospective jurors showed up Monday for the historic trial. How many people in New York are auditioning for a chance to be on that jury? It's kind of interesting to me, since we talked about the OJ trial, since OJ just passed, and we have jurors coming out now that he's dead saying, yeah, we slanted justice. We were trying to do jury nullifications, as we talked about on Friendly Friday the other day. That was what we were about. That was payback. We let him kill 2 people, and we acquitted him, knowing that he was guilty. We heard it from the mouth of one of the jurors. And she's like, I don't care. How many people in New York City are able to put aside their biases and go, you know what? This is nonsensical. This is a novel interpretation of law. This is an attempt to find a crime so that we could start the glass breaking of going after and indicting a former president. We're talking about a 34-count indictment about falsifying business records in connection with alleged hush money payments to his then attorney, Michael Cohen, who then made payments to a woman named Stormy Daniels, who has a sworn statement, which apparently she perjured herself on, saying that she didn't have an affair with Donald Trump, that it didn't exist. So, people who lie one way might lie the other way. I'm sure he did. It seems pretty telling that that's the case. This has been going on. But actually, I don't know. But more importantly, I actually don't care. I don't care about it. It doesn't matter to me. This is prior to Donald Trump already sitting in the Oval Office. We already know how he responded as a president and how he handled things. And we know that there was a full court press going on then. They had no expectation that he was going to make it through the other end. They didn't think that. Do you not remember November of 2016? How many of you guys remember that? How many of you remember sitting and getting those returns in November of 2016 when the when the vote tally started rolling in? I was sitting in Quantico, Virginia, in a crappy doubled up dorm as a 35 or a 36-year-old man with another roommate who was in his 30s. That was weird. And we're sitting there, and he went to bed, and I'm watching the TV on one of those like prison-style televisions that's mounted up in the corner of the room. I'm sitting there watching this with no volume, just turned on the subtitles, and I am dying laughing, and I laughed so loud that at 2 a.m. I had tears running down my face, and I woke up my roommate. And we had to be up at 6 a.m., and I felt really bad about it. But I also was dying laughing. It was too funny because they were ready to coronate Hillary Clinton. And I was looking into going into work for an FBI that had a Hillary Clinton at the helm. I told you yesterday, Obama handed over the keys of the national security state not to Donald Trump. That wasn't the expectation. He thought he was handing them over to Hillary Clinton. And they had all these big tools. And so when they walked out the door and they handed over FISA 702 and gave the FBI access to raw FISA, the raw intelligence, which previously had never been the case, they knew that they were giving the intelligence community tools to go after Donald Trump in perpetuity. And it continued. It was never Donald Trump's intelligence apparatus. And then he brought in what? Chris Wray. He got rid of Jim Comey, who was clearly a partisan actor, who now looks like an action figure for the Biden campaign. Right? They brought in Jim Comey, they got rid of him, and they brought in Chris Wray. Who's Chris Wray? Chris Wray was a white shoe lawyer who was making $9.2-ish million a year and took a $9 million pay cut to come and be the FBI director on the recommendation of Chris Christie. Because Chris Wray was the guy who helped solve the Bridgegate fiasco that was going on for Chris Christie, who had run for president that year. And it was one of the big scandals. It's incredibly important to remember, where did Chris Wray come from? And then we got Bill Barr, who popped up out of nowhere. He came out of the neocon past and became the attorney general after we had Sessions and some other things. That was a mess. They gave Trump a hard time about not having good hiring. And I think that's a fair criticism. But the number of players that were presented to him that were all, as you just said, a deep swamp player, a ton of them had already played in this game, and they just kept popping up. It was like whack-a-mole with these characters. It's very strange. It's really, really weird stuff. The historic takeaway is that he slept in the courtroom. That was the big takeaway that they had. This was covered on Huffington Post. It was covered by Rachel Maddow and Jake Tapper, by the New York Times. You name it, everybody covered it. The best was, and I'm going to paraphrase it because it's funnier to hear it than it is to actually watch it. It's really uncomfortable. Jake Tapper goes, Maggie Haberman from the New York Times, I'm reading your tweets here. What you said is that Donald Trump appeared to be falling asleep, nodding off, and his face, rested down on his chest. Can you tell me about that? She was like, yes, his face rested on his chest because he appeared to be nodding off and going to sleep. There's nothing worse than this form of let me ask you the question that I already know the answer to because I read your statement. How about you let the person say it? They're really bad at this stuff. I can't believe people watch CNN half the time. You go and watch it and just go, meh. I don't get it. So that was one big piece of it. But the funny thing is that the meta coverage is always really big. The meta coverage of what's going on is the real story. So here you go. This is coming from NBC. Trump's trial, a freak show on the outside, but it's solemn on the inside. Analysis piece, really? This is by Jonathan Allen. Analysis, Trump lawyers battled over the minutia, which apparently upset the judge. This is a case about minutia. This is a case of trying to craft the charges to fit inside of a law that otherwise do not fit the circumstances. It is a case of minutia. So there's no other way to do this. Meanwhile, supporters and detractors argued over the purpose of the trial on the outside. Okay, so that's kind of fun. So what are they doing? They're covering the people that are on the outdoors side of it. This is the folks that showed up. They had The Daily Show's Jordan Klepper. They had former Republican gubernatorial candidate Andrew Giuliani. That's the younger Giuliani. They had Alexandra Pelosi, the daughter of Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who lives in Greenwich Village, and said, I never miss a freak show. So they got a good little chat, a little soundbite from her. All these people showed up to kind of gawk at what was going on. And, we're there for it. My buddy Mark Notton, you can follow him on Twitter at MarkNaughton9, did live coverage on Twitter. I was doing other things and it didn't look like it got that spicy, but there he is. You guys see him? He made it on CNN with our video rig nonetheless. So there he is. And it says in the caption here, a cast of characters outside the courthouse for the New York hush money case. Yeah. And then right there, right next to me on the screen on the far left-hand side, that's Mark Notton wearing a nice blue blazer. He got called out by some Antifa/ Hamas girls, and they were very touchy on him. If you guys want to go back to his Twitter feed, he just broke the 20,000 mark. So check him out and check out some of that live feed if you guys are so interested in seeing what that scene looked like without having the NBC take. You don't need to take their words for it. You can just know that's what's going on. And not to be outdone by the freak show there, we've got all kinds of freak shows that have been happening all over the country. I want to do one more last thing about the court cases. Big gun decision was the Bruen case, and it said a big change in the way that the states were able to regulate gun permitting. You guys may be aware of this. We're hearing the political left talking about how they're the party of law and order these days. Oh, it's law and order. We really care about it. Everybody must be held accountable. It's only when it goes their way, right? Like they lost their mind about the Dobbs decision. They lost their mind about Bruen, and they're pushing back about it in various different ways that are legitimately unconstitutional on their face. New York has done it. Dexter Taylor is in court right now. He'll be in court today. He was testifying yesterday. We had a little catch up yesterday afternoon after he got out of trial. And the fact of the matter is, he said something very funny on the stand, which I love. His attorney asked him, hey, were you issued a permit for building guns in your apartment in Brooklyn? And he said, the Constitution is my permit, essentially. So I'm paraphrasing. And then the prosecutors got to do a cross-examination. And they said, let me ask you a question. Were you ever issued a permit for your... And by the way, the judge struck the constitutional argument, said you can't talk about the Constitution in this courthouse. Do you know how crazy that is? That's part of their technique, is they're showing this to the jury, that the Constitution is not relevant in Brooklyn, New York, when you talk about state charges. So they said, Constitution is my permit. That's not an allowed argument. Rephrase or strike from the record. And then the prosecutor asked the same question on cross-examination, and they said, did you ever get a permit issued to build weapons in your apartment? And his answer was, and I'm going to get his birthday wrong, but it's close enough. He said, yes, my permit was issued on October 10th. Of 1970. And the prosecutor's like, what? And he was like, yeah, my permit was issued on October 10th of 1970. And they said, what is that? And he's like, that's the day that I was born, because these are God-given rights and they are not subject to the state granting them to me. And then they're like, they object or whatever, and then they got rid of it. So how funny, but it's true. The God-given rights that exist they pre-exist the Constitution. Like I said, even the UN recognizes this kind of stuff in their Human Rights Charter, which is nonsensical and very left-wing. So very cool to be able to do this stuff, see it in real time. In the meantime, Hawaii is actually resisting the Bruen decision. They don't want to enforce it. I'm going to play you a little clip. It's very telling. It's from the mayor of Honolulu, who doesn't sound like he's a native Hawaiian. Not that I give a crap about that. I don't like Hawaii very much to begin with. And native Hawaiians in general, I probably don't get along most of the time. And most of them don't seem to be very interested in paying attention to anything outside of their little island. But this guy is out there making the argument that we are being very aggressive and we understand what the law is, but he's also saying that they're going to not enforce it. I'm going to tell you the difference between what Bruen said and what existed beforehand. They are going on the previous regime. They are not going with what Bruen is about. And we're going to talk about that because, like I said, I want to cover a number of Supreme Court stuff. Then we're going to press on and we'll get into the insanity of the Palestine. And it went from outside the Trump cast of characters. Mark went right into the Palestinian stuff. So we'll play some of that stuff as well.
As a position, we're being very aggressive. We understand the Supreme Court ruling. You used the word aggressive. We are being aggressive. We're going to abide by that because we have to uphold the law. But Hawaii is not a gun culture. Yep. We already got too many kids with guns. Ghost guns. We've already had, of late, too many shootings. For those of us who've lived here for a long time, unprecedented and horrifying. If people are afraid of homeless people, let me tell you. So I've asked the chief to be very aggressive in discerning. People go through the process, they've applied, we've upheld the law, we've given permits, but they're being pretty strict. Now, as I said earlier tonight, public safety is our #1 priority for us. And we're not going to turn this place into somewhere in the Southwest just because there's a law that says you can have open carry. Just so you.
Yeah, just so you know, we're not going to turn this into a tombstone. This is not going to be a shootout at the OK Corral. Is there anything more cringeworthy? That, by the way, that's the real word for those of you who are millennial types, or if you're younger, Gen Z, and you use the word cringe. The word is cringeworthy. Is there anything more cringeworthy than a guy who, I don't know, maybe you guys can tell me in the chat, where is that accent? Is he from New York? Is he from Jersey? He's from somewhere in the Northeast. And he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and then he's got a puka necklace, a chieftain necklace. What the hell is that? And he's wearing the lei. Cultural appropriation doesn't really bother me. I don't really care, except when you do that. That's really douchey. When you sound like whatever the hell that guy is, New Yorker or, Philly or something. It's so weird. It's such a weird thing to adopt. It's such a massively bizarre affectation, and it is cringeworthy. So that guy's talking about something that's very specific. What he's saying is that we are going to be very discreet and we're going to use our discretion on whether or not we give out pistol permits. So we're being aggressive about it. That's exactly what Bruen said you cannot do. The state has no say. The state is a neutral arbiter, and it is supposed to be a ministerial duty. The ministerial duty is someone comes and says, I would like a pistol permit. And they look at the thing and they say, you are not a prohibited person. Here is your pistol permit. It's called shall issue. You might swap the word shall with must. There used to be this sort of regime where half the country was in what is called shall issue. You must issue it. Texas is one of those places. Now you don't even need one in Texas. A lot of states have gone to constitutional carry and just said, screw it. We don't need the burden. The second thing is called may issue. This was California and New York's position. And may issue means that the law enforcement officer, what's called the CLEO, the chief law enforcement officer of the area, has full discretion on whether or not they give it to people. They can give it to people that contribute to their political campaigns. That's why Donald Trump used to have a pistol permit when no one else did in New York. You had to be moneyed or connected or both. That's may issue. It leads to corruption, and it leads to government having a say in something that is your God-given right. The Bruin decision corrected that and said, no, you may not do this. So the problem that I always see is this. The leftists want the federal government to be the one telling everybody what to do, right? They love that. They love federal control, the highest sort of order of government coming and crushing down on the individual states and on the individual counties and on the individual cities and letting them know, no. What you think in your little area is backwards. We're going to rule from on high, except when it doesn't go their way. When it doesn't go their way, suddenly they become localists. Have you guys noticed this? There's no way that you can have any continuity as a political leftist. We know that in the case, but I'm talking about specifically in the way that they look at government. Government is our friend, except when it isn't our friend. There's no principles at work here. So either you say, yeah, look, the Supreme Court has ruled it's a state's issue. Abortion is a state's issue. Either that's okay or it's not okay. They want abortion to be pushed from the top down, but they also want gun control to be pushed from the top down. It actually comes down to there is no continuity. They have no sense of doing anything that aligns with their previous decisions. So as I always say, people who are political leftists must wake up with migraines every day. That is the speed of one idea that is directly opposed to their other idea, smashing into each other at full force and resonating with a concussive force inside their brain. And then they wake up and they're pissed off and their head hurts. Why does my head hurt? Probably because you're a moron. All right, here's a couple things. Let's play this. This is going on in San Francisco. I want to just show you these protests that were going on. Very coordinated, very interesting to see. It's interesting to see what you're seeing on the screen right now is the Golden Gate Bridge. They've got a huge sign that says, "Stop the World for Gaza." And they are laying it across people's cars, and they parked their cars 3 across and blocked the Golden Gate Bridge, this iconic bridge in San Francisco that connects up to the headlands in Marin. I'm sure that's what those people that are trying to get across the bridge are feeling good about. Stopped it for several hours, it turns out. I think it was like 4 or 5 hours of this sort of thing being blocked off. So what do you do when that happens? Well, let's just kind of show a couple of others. This was another situation blocking the travelers who were trying to get to O'Hare Airport. This one actually has audio, so I don't have to describe it, but that was an aerial shot from the Golden Gate. Here's another one. Can you imagine the amount of faith that you must have in your fellow man to lock? What they do is they take those pipes, and the pipes all have a message on it. So they lock their hands inside the pipes, and then sometimes they'll even handcuff each other inside the pipe so that the only way that you can get it is cutting off the pipe. And that way that the police can't come in there and get rid of the handcuffs. So they become this human chain that is stuck, with their arms spread wide. And then they'll block off whole streets. No business as usual, they say, wearing their stupid masks. And once they have their hands handcuffed and then they can't do anything like pee, so they got to pee themselves or someone has to help them. They can't scratch their face or adjust their mask. So I would love to see people just walk up and flip their masks down because that's really funny to me. Just a lot of idiocy happens when you start doing these stupid, mindless protests. To what? Like you're pissing off people. The thing is this, we actually should be encouraging these idiots in a big, big, big way. More marches, more protests equals more people look and say Donald Trump is in trial over money that was exchanged hands before he was elected a president and it didn't affect anything and nobody cares. But I can't get to the airport. I'm unable to get to the airport. And then there's these people. There's some marches in New York City. Like I said, San Francisco to New York. Very coordinated. Where was the FBI on this? Because these could have gone sideways, couldn't they? Isn't that what they told us that they're doing? How about this? There is only one solution. Scream death to America and burn an American flag. So here's another one from New York. This is my favorite when protests go wrong. I want more idiot white kids wrapped up doing cosplay, screaming death to America. All it does is take regular people and go like, I was kind of sympathetic, but those people are assholes and I'm not going to be part of that. So you're just going to move people into our camp. People in the middle are going to see this and they're going to move over. And here's why.
Yeah, shit! Death to America! Yo, somebody arrest him.
Who did that?
Why you did the flag?
No. Who did that? Anyone have that on video? Anyone have that on video? Anybody have that on video?
So it's hard to make out what's going on in there, but as I can understand, what it seems to make sense is that we've got a guy wearing a polo shirt and a baseball cap. He doesn't look like an Intifada type idiot screaming death to America. I think he actually was carrying an American flag as kind of a counter protest, and someone lit his flag on fire and then he lit his butt on fire. So, that's just going to move normies, as we call them, right? Like the people that are not paying attention, the people that just want to be left alone. They're going to start going like, hey, what are you guys doing? I'm not into this. I'm going to do whatever the opposite is that you guys are doing. Here's some footage from that Golden Gate Bridge protest. This is San Francisco, the home of people who, generally speaking, probably agree with a lot of this stuff, probably voted for a lot of the stupidity. I bet you this guy is not going to vote that way again because now he's seeing where it comes to roost. By the way, there are a lot of conservatives that live in the Bay Area. In fact, it used to be a very conservative type thing. It was like conservatives who are also tolerant. That's not the same thing. Like my dad used to run a radio station out there when I was a kid. I think there used to be a lot of normal people, especially in the East Bay, maybe not in the city itself. Cities are always kind of weird. But this guy seems like he's fed up. People who have a lot of money that want to drive over the Golden Gate Bridge and get to work or get to God knows what, whatever their business is in the city. They got a date. They got dinner. They're going to go meet somebody. Who are you to block the road? Shut down the world for Gaza. Piss off. So here's this guy kind of joining our camp, I would say.
You get out of the fucking road! You're being filmed! You're in the fucking road! You're being filmed! You don't understand! You're being filmed! You think I care? You're in the road! Please calm down! Please calm down! You're being filmed!
Sir, please calm down. You're being filmed. You're being filmed. You understand? And the guy's like, I don't care. Like, he doesn't care. He looks like what I imagine Roger Stone would look like if Roger Stone was taking like testosterone supplements or he was on roids. He just looks pissed. He's not a young man. He's silver haired. He's wearing his sunglasses and he's like, get off the bridge, you idiots. And all these people are wearing the traffic vest. Yeah, the fact that they are not getting run over just tells you how soft and gentle and loving America is, which is not a terrible thing, by the way. But we're going to start getting rid of people. There's no question about that. This is the way you treat them. This is Florida. This is the way you treat idiots in the middle of the road. Law enforcement, take note. Throw their stupid butts out of the roadway. Put them where they can't hurt anybody, including themselves. So here's what yelling, San Francisco, that's an escalation. Florida's got the right answer. They learned this from the guys in France. You may have seen that viral video of this fat guy in France who walks out and he's like dragging people by their necks, which I also love. Here's cops doing the same thing. So there's a couple funny things that happen when you chain your arms to your friends and have pipes in between. Number one is you're probably not going to be able to hold your balance. And if one of you goes, everybody's on the ground. That's funny. I'm not encouraging you to knock over people that are doing that. But if you do, make sure you send me the video and we'll play it here on the show. And the second thing is, you could stack these idiots like cordwood, right? You just pick them all up. Like you just grab all their legs and you just carry them like you did in the military, like a body carry. Set them on the side. They can't get up. Once you lay them on the ground, they're not getting up. Like they're like, They're like Kafka's beetle, just stuck there on their backs. They can't go anywhere. So move these idiots off the road. Let them lay there in the sun and catch a little tan. That's not going to feel very good. Screw them. Look, you made a terrible choice. And you're pissing everybody off, and we're going to get rid of you. They used to do this in Washington, D.C. too. They call it the chain dragon or the chain snake. There's different names for it, I've heard, but it's a tactic. And here's the thing: when you do that dumb thing, you're going to get regular people who have no idea what you're there for, why you're there, but they are not going to be into your cause when they have to walk to the airport by parking their cars on a parkway to not miss their multi-hundred, sometimes $1,000+ flights. People don't like it. It's not good for business. It's not good for their cause. So they need to do more of it. We should actually be encouraging these marches and this stupidity. It's really useful for messaging in the wrong way for them.
I'm telling you, they closed down the whole street. Everyone has to walk to the airport. What are they doing?
And all of this stuff is basically retards that are at the low level and the elite idiots at the top that don't get it. They don't understand what we're about. Before we get too far, let me just move on and say thanks to my buddies over at Catholic Vote for sponsoring my rants in the morning, which I'm slowly, as you can tell, the blood pressure is getting percolated up at a higher level. I'm not yelling at you, but I'm yelling with you. CatholicVote.org is where you guys can go get the loop. You can get more news there. They've got all kinds of great coverage. They're doing really great work on social media right now at Catholic Vote. So if you're not following them, if you're following me and you're not following Catholic Vote, check them out. You'll see. Their last one that I put out the other day, they just said America needs God. It's really straightforward. And it's just, people are like, yep, that seems true. Like, these idiots are screwing things up. America needs God. It always does. And especially when things get hard and stupid. So CatholicVote.org, or follow them on social media. I don't know why I'm doing this with my fingers, but there you go. At Catholic Vote on Instagram and on True Social, and also over on X. And I'm sure they're on Facebook as well. So we're getting spicier and spicier. We're going to keep going. Listen. Some really good stuff coming out of the Idiot Factory. And the Idiot Factory is, I think, anybody that gets exposed by Bill Maher for being a retard, for being a complete leftist a-hole. Bill Maher knocks CNN's nonstop bashing of Trump. He says, no one's been harder on him than me, and I'm bored with it. Oops, you're seeing Jesse Waters on there basically talking about how Trump is more charming. The jurors will actually see the person of Trump, which is what you want to do. You want to show that the defendant is a human being. It's a great defensive tactic. He's also been insinuating himself into the sidebars with the judge, so he gets really close, so that the jury can probably hear some of his interactions and just like what kind of a guy he is. And that actually tends to radicalize people to normalcy. Like, if you're like, I hate this guy, but he's pretty funny, and like, he's Trump. He's likable. Anybody who's around him seems to like him. That's the thing you have to understand. His personal, his persona seems to be one thing, and on TV, people may or may not resonate with it, but up close, it seems like a lot of people do. In any case, Bill Maher is doing this. He's the host of Real Time on CNN, and he's just like, I'm sick of this. Then he went on his little podcast, which is called, not little, I'm sure it's bigger than ours, Rumble. It's called, the Club Random, where he brings on people, and he brought on Katie Couric, which is amazing because Katie Couric is atrocious. She has no idea how bad she is. She needs a teleprompter to stay on script. So what does he say? He said, I'm really sick of like the legacy media, including CNN, where he actually has a show, saying, quote, I don't trust anyone is giving me the full story. Everyone is giving me their spin on the story, including the places that used to be, I thought, fairly neutral, like CNN and the New York Times. We're all laughing, but that's okay. He said, I think used to be a lot more neutral. And then this is the part that I think is interesting. Couric says, oh, you think they're more activists? And he said, yeah, you could always slant the story at any time. My earliest memories are of my father and me talking about something. I remember him telling me something like, the bias comes through somehow. I remember the examples he used. He said, if you say he squawked about it as opposed to he said it. So they're slanting it with language. This is an old concept, obviously. He said, Robert Kennedy, pre-68, before he was killed. He said, I was under the age of 12. This is Bill Maher speaking. He said, Robert Kennedy, if you like him, you say he's dedicated. If you hate him, you say he's ruthless. But today, we're not even close to that. Now we're not even using words that mean the same thing. And that's intense. So the best is, Katie Couric decided that she was going to weigh in, like I said, off script for these people. Nothing funnier. Watch this one, okay? Is there anything more smug than a TV news host who's never worked with her fingers, who's never built anything in her life that is of consequence that would matter to you? And she used to actually have this kind of like sugary sweet garbage show, right? She also had a co-host who seemed like he was a real creep and never said anything about it. Here she is defaming you, most of you who voted for Trump. And obviously it's because you're jealous of money and it's a class warfare thing. That's why you elected a billionaire in 2016 and 2020. Yeah, I said it. I know. That's what I think happened too.
I feel like, to your point, Bill, the socioeconomic disparities are a lot, and class resentment is a lot, and anti-intellectualism and elitism is what is driving many of these anti-establishment, which are Trump voters,
right,
or anti-establishment voters. So I think that is a huge problem that we have to address. I mean, globalization and, the transition from an industrial to a technological society. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been jealous of what someone else has or resentful. It is such a corroding and bitter, almost bile feeling.
Right.
And I feel like,
Yeah, it is that bitter bile feeling. That's called projection, Katie. You may be wondering how to call that. Now that you know what to call it, and there's nothing funnier than a woman that is that dim and has that little amount of self-reflection talking about anti-intellectualism. So that's fun too. In any case, those are some pretty hot takes. You hate a billionaire because of class warfare, and Trump's people are anti-establishment, and that's why we're going to just let you know that you're just too dumb to be able to fend for yourselves, and you're anti-intellectuals. There's a lot of really smart people that want to keep their own money and do their own thing with it. Not everybody is a Mark Cuban. Most people look at it when they write their taxes. That includes most of us on the Suspendables crew. When we write our taxes check, now that we work for ourselves, we don't have it pulled out of a paycheck like a W-2 because we all work on a 1099 basis. We all go, this really hurts. I'm funding actual tyranny. I was talking to producer Phil the other day, who is one of my members of my brain trust, and our conversation was as follows. I was like, I had to write about a $9,300 check, and that's because I wrote off most of the costs of the business. You can see everything around here I had to build up. We've got, $20,000+ worth of technology that we're working on. It's a one-man show, so here I am doing all this kind of stuff, building this business that I didn't plan on building, and I had to write still a check for almost $10,000 to the government. And as I do so, right, and I didn't work for like 3-4 months. I didn't get paid for 3-4 months of 2023, for whatever that's worth for you all. So I write this check, and he goes, well, that doesn't even fund like one bomb going to Ukraine. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't even. What it funds is an entire Quantico classes like khaki pants and polo shirts. I basically bought one Quantico class, training the next levels of tyrants, I guess, because they're only going after one type right now. Pretty wild, pretty strange. It leads us to a couple things. Number one, the elites don't have any idea what things cost. So I think what we'll do is we'll play a video showing that prices are going up. You guys know this. Like I said, I'm watching all these people filming like their grocery cart. There was a woman in Oklahoma. She had 3 items. She showed them, and I was like, oh, that's like $30. And she comes out and she's like, it was $28. And it was mac and cheese, a thing of milk, some Velveeta, and Country Crock. Like, that was it. Another kid shows his stuff, and I'm like, oh, that looks like $78. He ended up saying it was $100. I don't know if that's true or not, but he was in California, so maybe more expensive. It was milk, chicken, like a couple of coconut waters. It was some thank you cards. It was nothing. It was $100. My wife said she went to the store the other day, came back, and it was 90-something bucks. Everybody's looking around going like, holy crap. Like, I can't believe how expensive things are. Why are they so expensive? Well, here's a lady talking about it, and then I'm going to show you maybe why they are so expensive, because it's kind of fun. There's 2 reasons. Number 1, I don't think the elites have any idea. And number 2, our money is worth less. That's why, and we can see exactly why. Here we go.
For the 3rd straight month, prices have gone up more than expected, from the rising cost of car insurance and repairs. So how much you're paying at the grocery store every week?
Do you know how much one of these costs? $2 freaking.
This was $200.
We supposed to skip the power bill this month so we can buy groceries, or the mortgage?
Before the pandemic, all of these groceries, about 30 items, cost $100 on average. Now, 5 years later, according to Nielsen IQ, all this costs 33% more, meaning you'd have to skip about 10 items, like chicken, bread, milk, and bananas to make your $100 budget.
Yeah, you got to skip the protein and the milk, and you get basically like a couple of little snacks, and holy moly, man. So that's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to see how pricey things are. I understand that basically our money has been eroded at a really high level. So speaking of snacks and things, let me throw this out there. If you guys want a healthy snack that you're going to get pretty good bang for your buck out of, you guys can go to matthatjerky.com/Kyle or use the promo code Kyle at checkout. It saves you 20%. This is the one I haven't tried yet. I told you guys I'm doing this experiment where I'm slowly like trying out what they've got. I did the original. I did the mild original, and I didn't like it as much because I like a little bit of spice. The original is really, really good, and the spicy original makes you eat it slower, and I'm not as crazy about it as much. I'm not a big spice guy. Like, I'm a medium spice guy. So this is the pinch your grandma, which is supposed to have the Reaper peppers. We'll try that too later. Check out Mad Hat Jerky. My favorites are the USDA Prime cuts. The beef is really, really high quality, and it's really, really tender and moist, and it's a good snack. So I keep it at the desk here because I just burn through the stuff. Eric Johnson, our chat, who's our chat monitor, he loves that stuff and wrote a really nice review we read the other day. MattHatJerky.com/Kyle, promo code Kyle. And then the other one here is mypillow.com/Kyle. I know a lot of you guys are always in the market in that. Why is bedding something that we go through so frequently? I think we're always like looking for like the one, like, oh, if I just had the right sheets. A lot of people swear by the Giza Dream Sheets, including my friend Alpha, and he loves their slippers. So check out them if that's the market that you're in. I never want you guys to go buy something that you can't afford just to support us. That's dumb. Don't do that. You could just be our subscriber for $5 a month, and we'll love you anyway. But and you don't have to do that either. But if you guys want to go spend money with my Pillow and Mike Lindell, you can do so using our promo code KYLE. Saves you up to 50%. You guys have actually sent me your cart showing the 50% discount. Looks kind of crazy when that happens. Somebody bought like $1,800 worth of crazy stuff back at Christmas and sent me their cart. Anyway, Mike Lindell's company, mypillow.com/Kyle, promo code Kyle at mypillow if you guys want to do that, or check out the delicious jerkies. I like the garlic the best. The garlic and the black truffle. I don't know even what black truffle is, but it's really good. It's got like just the right amount of spice. Okay, you want to know why it's so expensive, guys? You want to know? It's not crazy. There's two reasons. Here's number one. We might as well lead with this because this was the main crux of the issue that we put out there. This was what we threw out on the thumbnail. Mike Johnson makes his long-awaited move on Ukraine. Yeah, remember how he told you his two top priorities? He said, I'm an America First speaker, and number one priority here is giving money to Israel and Ukraine. And you're like, what the F, dude? Really? This is what you're about? This story says that they're looking to push a bipartisan support bill to keep our allies. It's a long-awaited decision by Johnson. Marks a pivotal moment for the Louisiana Republican as he faced intense pressure from the conference over how he would handle foreign aid to key U.S. allies. How would he handle it? He would handle it by making our money worth nothing, by giving it away. Here's a leaked copy of the supplemental package that they had. You guys ready? Are you looking at this? Because it's very upsetting. $95.3 billion, roughly 60% of which goes into DIB, which I'm not 100% sure, but I can imagine. $20 billion to replenish stocks of DOD because we're giving all of our stuff to Ukraine, so we buy new stuff. So that's the aid is in the value. So we're spending money at our house. So we're taking our own money and we're spending it on our military by giving away our old stuff. $15 billion for DOD ops. Do you read that? $15 billion for DOD ops in the Euro Command, AOR. That's the Ukraine part. $14 billion for U.S. aid so that the Ukrainians can purchase our weapons from us. So we're going to give them U.S. taxpayer dollars to spend on U.S. companies. This is that circle jerk that goes around. This is the self-licking ice cream cone. $8 million for IG and almost $8 billion in direct support for the Ukrainian government because we're paying their pensions. It's about $1 billion a day for us to run Ukraine, which is what we're doing as a proxy state. Israel, $14 billion, $4 billion for more missile defenses, Iron Dome and David Sling, another $1 billion for Iron Beam. I assume that's part of their wall. $4 billion, you guys let me know if I'm wrong about that. $4 billion replenishment of DOD stocks. Again, these are things we are giving to Israel. Israel is then using it, and then we buy more of our own stuff. So we're giving them our ammo and our munitions, right? Congratulations to all the stockholders that are in part of the military-industrial complex, whether it be Boeing or Lockheed Martin or Raytheon and so on. Yep. Congratulations to all of you, GE. Way to go. Operation Red Sea, $2.4 billion for operations, force protection, and the replenishment of combat expenditures. Well, that seems like a lot of money. Anyway, it goes on and on. Submarine industrial base, $3.3 billion. Investment in a dry dock construction. Great. That's why our money is not worth anything, because we're writing checks from ourselves to other people so that they can write checks and buy our stuff. So yeah, of course. That's why. That's what's going on. And the second reason that we don't know what the hell is going on and why we're in such a screwed up world is that the elites, the people that have the ear of these politicians, don't know anything about anything that you deal with. Nothing at all. Are you ready? Here's Bill Gates on the Ellen Show. And this is actually quite illuminating. The man has zero idea what things cost. How on earth is he going to advocate for anyone other than Bill Gates? This is actually pretty funny.
All right, we're going to test your knowledge of some everyday items that you get at the supermarket. When's the last time that you have been at a supermarket?
Long time ago.
Okay. All right. This will be interesting. All right. If you can guess 3 out of the 5 products within $1 of each one, the audience will get something. Okay? If you get all of them, we'll pay off your children's student loans.
No danger there.
Yeah. All right. Which is going to be our prize model? And here we go. There is rice-a-roni, right there. The San Francisco treat, of course. How much do you think rice-a-roni would be within $1?
$5.
Okay, let's...
The audience didn't like that.
Let's see.
Ready?
Oh, it's $1. Look, what a bargain.
I'll take 5.
I know. All right. Ooh.
Okay.
Tide Pods. You've been hearing a lot about those lately. What do you think?
$4. No. They want me to go higher.
Yeah.
Let's go with $10. $10.
All right. $19.97. It's expensive to do laundry.
I'll take a half.
It's
Yeah, Bill Gates doesn't know how much it costs to do laundry, and he doesn't know what rice costs. Is that shocking to you? Not a little bit, right? The cultural elites, the people that have all the money, the ones that can get in the ear of these idiots, have no idea what things cost. He just said he hasn't been to a grocery store in God knows how long. That's kind of like me with stamps. I have no idea how much stamps cost. One of you were talking in the chat earlier that when the post office opened in 1900, that stamps were like 2 cents a piece. And then in my mind, they're always 27 cents a piece. But I'm pretty sure it's like $11 to send an envelope at this point. I have no idea. This is my wife's department. I actually have a mental block. I cannot go to the mailbox. I despise going there. In any case, let's do the merch store thing. I've got some palate cleansers, so stick around and you guys are going to enjoy. Both of them are funny. One of them is, like I said, it's going to be only for the video crowd. And the other one is going to be something a little bit more Suspendables related. So here we go. Merch store. You guys can check out that. And you can also support the Suspendables mission to continue to push back against three-letter agencies, specifically the FBI. Go to the-suspendables.com. You'll be shocked to learn that a promo code Kyle will save you. That's right, 10%. So promo code Kyle saves you anywhere from 10 to 50%, depending on where you use it. Just plug it into all the websites. And then, if they don't offer it, then hit them up and say, hey, how come you don't have a Kyle Seraphin show promo? The-suspendables.com. You can get the brand new Kyle Seraphin TKSS. This is the Kyle Seraphin show shirt. It's got TKS, then in the badge with the Suspendables S, and it is spelled out on the back. And on the back of it, it says the Kyle Seraphin show very nicely in that cool looking graphic that Garrett put together. Again, all that proceeds, they don't benefit me. I just get the free shirt, and then Garrett takes care of it. He's given me a uniform the way I used to have when I was in the military, which I very much appreciate. I really like being able to go to my closet and not have to guess what is an appropriate thing to wear for the Kyle Seraphin Show podcast. The-suspendables.com, promo code Kyle. Support the merch store. Support the O'Boyle family. We do appreciate them. And I appreciate that he took on the burden of making merch because I have zero interest in that whatsoever. Not even a little bit. I don't want to do it. All right. Are you guys ready for a palate cleanser? Because it's been kind of a weird one. What a weird time to be alive. Let's do this. This is a woman. She's very pretty, by the way. So those of you who are listening, you're going to miss out on that. Come see the show an hour in. Very pretty woman saying she's worried about what her boyfriend is doing when he's not returning her text messages. And here's a little snippet into the mind of men. And I've got another one that I'll play in a second here too. So here we go.
Do you want to know why he's not texting you right now?
The best part of that is the bro that's sitting down on the lawn in a lawn chair who's looking and filming, and he's drinking a beer, and he's like, yeah, you did it. Okay, I'm going to call that video, I don't know what it's called in reality, but I'm calling it the hot dog luge, because that seems to be a luge type setup. There's some kind of a slick track, and he puts the weenie on some wheels, and then he sends the wheels down over the balcony, down over the chute, into a jump that sheds the wheels. That's really critical. You got to get the wheels off before it lands right on the barbecue grill to cook it up. Yes, I can confirm, this is what men spend their time doing when they're not texting you back, ladies. We're doing stuff like this. My buddies and I, when I was in college, I took 3 days. Yeah, and I probably failed some of my classes because of it, but I took 3 days and I built my friend a rickshaw from broken bicycles that I found around the college campus. And I hacksawed them up and I put them together and we rigged it with wires. And I drilled through all this stuff and had these metal saws rolling, and it sounded like I was killing a banshee. And everyone else was in the backyard drinking, and I was building this like lunatic rickshaw thing. with lighting so that we're street legal, and we rolled around on it. 3 days of building a rickshaw. That's what it takes to do things. I guarantee you that hot dog weenie luge was not easily done. It was not quickly done. All right, one more video for you. This is for the audio people. This is what happens when someone tries to honeypot the suspendables, okay? This is a real-world look into the mind of the suspendables. We are task-focused on getting rid of evil. This is why you should support the O'Boyle Family Sweatshop. Here you go. This is what it's all about, folks.
Gonna need a new spray valve, and then it should work properly.
Were my pipes dirty?
I don't know. I just checked the spray valve and the tailpiece.
Did you clean my pipes?
No. I just checked your spray valve and tailpiece.
Do you want to clean my pipes?
Do you want me to clean your pipes?
Maybe.
Okay. Just let me know if you do.
I bet I could handle a pretty big pipe.
You mean like a 2? I don't know. I mean, your system was built to be a 1.5. That's what you currently have. I can install a 2, but I have to rip everything out, and that's going to cost you north of $3,000.
Oh, I don't have that much money.
Yeah, well, it doesn't really make sense to do it anyway, so.
Well, maybe if I can figure out another form of payment?
You mean like a check? Yeah, that's fine.
No, I mean like maybe if you take care of my pipes, I can take care of your pipe.
Ma'am, I do my own plumbing.
Ma'am, we do our own plumbing here. We do our own research and thinking. Come on now. Don't try to lure me in with this honeypot garbage. If you're not watching us on rumble.com, you should consider it in the future. Go to rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Give us a thumbs up and a like. Make sure you are following the channel. Again, you can subscribe there if you choose. That is always an option. We do appreciate you guys supporting the channel here. And just here is a little look at the folks that keep the Kyle Seraphin show going. It is brought to you by Catholic Vote and our friends over at 4 Patriots, by Patriot Coolers, Mad Hat Jerky, and Mike Lindell and the My Pillow crew. Always check out, use our promo code KYLE on all those places. We appreciate that. Let's do a 5-star review and shut it down for the day. I don't know why I like running that graphic, but it makes me feel like I'm at the end of a real show. Here we go, folks. This is from Spotify. It's from Jeff, and Jeff said, "Thanks, Kyle, for your take on current events. Would have never known about most of your topics without listening to you. God bless you and your family." Well, he's right about one thing. It is a family affair. And also, we try to dig a little deeper into the news cycle. I don't want to just hit the main stuff that everybody covers. Let's try to get a little bit more, it's a little bit more cognitive in the world out there. So I hope you guys appreciated today's show. And if you did, make sure you share it with your friends. That's how we continue to grow. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple, on Spotify. You can leave comments on the Rumble channel, and we will see you again tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be a weird Wednesday because it's 2024, and it's nothing but weirdness all the way out. It's turtles all the way down, weird turtles at that. We'll see you again tomorrow. God bless you. See you in the morning.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.